Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be painting up a High Elf Swordmaster Hoeth, and this is my first video for the old world when it comes to painting, and there's many more, so I hope you enjoy it. Yes, so my first video for the old world when it comes to painting tutorials. So as you can see, I've got a plastic Swordmaster Hoeth champion and I have primed it black. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do. It would be really good if you could, and check out my members area. So this is the High Elf Mage from the same set, the Island of Blood set that I've been painting up. Just need to finish off the base and then I can get that done. But yeah, this is the kind of standard I'm going for the army. So to start off, we're going to use some Iron Hand Steel, and this is going to be for all of the metallics. So just work your way around the model and basically just brace coat all the metallics with a metallic paint. Now, you should be note that you may need 2 coats for this, really depending on you know, how thin you make your paint. But you know, I've just added a little bit of water to this and then just getting it on. Now you will notice that the High Elf models are quite metallic when it comes to what they are. The vast majority of the miniature is metal, especially the Swordmasters, but when we do other painting tutorials, you'll see a little bit of a difference. So using Newell oil, I'm only really shading certain parts. So the chest plate, the shoulder pads, the gloves and the weapons and the wrist vambraces as the only thing that I'm really going to be shading with Newell oil. The rest of the armor, mainly the helmet and the scale sort of mail, like sort of skirt that they wear, I'm going to be shading that with a different color. So you don't need to do like a 2-tone shade. You could just shade all of the metallics one color if you really wanted to. So for the scales, I'm using a contrast paint. This is Ultramarines Blue, and this has been thinned down to about 1 part contrast paint, 2 parts water to get it quite thin, so it basically has less surface tension, so it sits more in the recesses rather than the sort of more raised areas. And this is perfect for this sort of scale armored skirt that the elf wears. And I just work way around the model and just basically give it a good wash. Now make sure that the other wash, the Newell oil, is dry before you do this, because you don't want the two of them hitting each other and then while they're wet and then mixing in, because that could be a bit of a disaster. So base coating all of the gold areas were Retribution Armored Gold. It's a classic gold, it's a good gold, it's one of the best golds that Games Workshop do. And just using a size 1 Series 33 Rosemary CO brush, I just work my way around the model and pick out everything I want to be gold. Now I will just say quickly in regards to some aspects of the model. So the skin and the gemstones and the leather, I haven't painted in this video. I have painted, but I've not included in the tutorial. I have videos up on the channel now for skin tones and for leather as well, and I've got a video coming for gemstones, so they'll be there. So to shade the golden areas, you need some Reichland Flesh shade. Absolute classic. You can, if you want to be a little bit different, use something like Glimmin' Flesh contrast paint, or if you really want a real dirty looking gold, use something like Ajax Earthshade. Both of those are really good alternatives, and they kind of sort of give you a different look and feel to your golds as well. So just go around and make sure all that's done. For the white areas, Corax White. I know everyone loves this paint. You can leave it in the comments to tell me how great Corax White is. I don't mind it. I find it really good for doing what I needed to do, which is basically base coating areas and tidying up white areas before I put a lighter tone, like a yellow or something over it. So, but basically just make sure that the under robe areas, which is kind of just at the bottom of the armor and then the elbows. And then once you've base coated all of that using Apothecary White contrast paint, I didn't bother thinning this, I just took it straight out the pot, and then just give the white areas a bit of a liberal wash of the Apothecary White. yeah, there's nothing really too much crazy about the white areas. When we get to doing a tutorial on the Seaguard, you'll see a very big difference. For the blue, we would use Caledon Sky. Make sure that you give it a really good shake and just pick out all of the blue areas. For me, this was like the little trim sort of line that sort of run down the side of the scale mail, and as well as up on the shoulder pads and everywhere else. You can kind of see it. It's like a very thin line. So just take your time at this, and if you do make any mistakes at this point, you can just go back with your base colors and then rebase and then just rewash those areas once you tidy it up. So, but again, I'm using a size 1 brush from Rosemary CO Series 33. It's got a really good point on it. Really quality brushes. You can check out the affiliate link in my description below if you want to check them out. And yeah, they're really good. So I just worked my way around, took my time, and then got all of that done. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving into shading the blue. And with that, I use Kantor Blue, and I've mixed it with a lot of water to make it like a wash consistency. And basically, I'm just going to wash over all of the blue areas with this Kantor Blue wash. I like using Kantor Blue for things like this. If you look at the mage at the very beginning of this video, this is basically the colors I use for that blue robe. So, but just a little bit easier in regards to steps. So just work your way around, making sure that everything is given a good liberal wash of this Kantor Blue, and then we can get on to the next stage, which is going to be adding Lothorian Blue into the Caledon Sky and slowly start picking up the highlights. And basically, when I do these highlights, I'm kind of picking out the most raised, prominent edges of the blue. Now, you've got to remember, there's not much. So if you don't want to, or you're now starting to paint models that are in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rank of your unit, you don't need to do this. Like, this is my philosophy for the old world models is my rank at the front will be sort of done with really good highlights and painted really well. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ranks in the unit are pretty much just base coated and washed. And some of the detail is picked out that you can kind of see, but the vast majority of it, you know, you can get away with by not painting it. But when we go through more painting videos and stuff like that, you know, we'll get sort of tackle those sort of things. So to pick out the white, again, this is an entirely optional point. I just use some Ulthuan Grey and just pick out the most raised points of the white areas. Again, because this model is on the front rank, right in the middle, I kind of want to make this guy look really good. But the rest of the guys in the unit are not going to be given this treatment. You know, make sure it's all nice and neat. The plumes and anything else like that, yeah, do them. But for the rest of the model, you don't really need to. And as you can see, I don't know why, but I didn't film the silver, but I've just got some silver from Vallejo and I mixed it into the gold 50-50, and then I'm just going around the model and just highlighting the gold with just a couple of thin edge highlights and picking out the most raised prominent areas of the golden parts, and just to give them a highlight. Again, if you're doing the 2nd and 3rd and 4th ranks of the unit, don't do this. You don't need to do it. Do not worry about doing this. I also go around and highlight the breastplate and the helmet and the sort of hands and greaves, as well as the sword blade. I do plan on doing another video for those glowy runes on the sword at a later date, so don't worry about that. Now for the hair, we're going to be base coating that with Mephiston Red. Now, I've seen a couple of pictures of this and people have done this blue. Now, this model is really confusing when it comes to the hair and the plume, because the hair and the plume kind of mix into each other. So take your time and sort of just work out where the hair is flowing. And once you start painting it, it kind of comes a little obvious of which parts are supposed to be which. So just don't worry too much about getting it wrong, because you can always like correct it and sort of adjust it once both parts are painted. So just go around and make sure that you've got a nice opaque finish on the red, and then we're ready to base coat the hair. And to base coat the hair, I'm going to be using Avalanche Sunset. Now I will say that I did have to use at least 2 coats, quite thin coats, almost 3 in parts, to get a nice opaque finish on this. And yeah, as you can imagine, it's trying to work out where the hair and the plume kind of disappear and do different things was a little bit fun. But you'll be happy to know that most of the plastic high elf models have helmets on. There's very few of them actually have their helmets off, so you don't really have to worry too much about this issue. It's only really on this guy that this becomes a bit of a problem. So, but just take your time, and if you're a little bit unsure, Google is your friend, and Google the model, and then have a look at some painted examples and try to see what other people have done. But hopefully you'll sort of pick up where I've done it. Now, see, these are the next two colours, Scrag Brown and Ice Yellow. And so basically what I'm doing here is I've just made a wash out of Scrag Brown, and I'm washing the entire hair area. Scrag Brown is an amazing colour to do any shading on yellows. When I do my Howling Griffins for the yellow sections, a lot of my shading areas is done with Scrag Brown. Now for the highlights, I've started adding in some iced yellow into the Avalanche Sunset, and all I'm doing is moving around the model and picking out the highlights. And on the top I'm just getting some nice little thin lines on the top of the head to sort of represent hair and paint that texture in. And all I do is I continue moving around the model, and I continue adding in more and more ice yellow into the mix, and then continually building up the highlights, always working up to the more prominent highest points with the brightest color of paint. And that way then you'll sort of create like a slight transition over with the layers, and it's pretty easy. So as you can see here, this is pretty much almost finished. It's almost pure ice yellow at this point, and I'm just picking out the sort of ends and points of the hair and the uppermost part of the head as well. And for me, I think it looks pretty good, and you can kind of see that difference. So for the plume, we're gonna wash it with some corn red, again making a nice wash out of your base coat. I tend like to use a lot of acrylic paints, thin down a lot into washes, because you can get that consistent finish with your paints. When you kind of use different brands, it can kind of sort of create different finishes, and you have to matte varnish and all of that kind of stuff. What I've done is added a little bit of black into the corn red here, and I'm just going back in and sort of just putting this into the deepest areas. Now I do get a little bit excited, and I'm gonna have to go back with some Memphiston red here just to tidy up the strands. Don't worry too much if you have to do this. It's kind of good practice to sort of come back in and get that base color back over the top, because this can be quite translucent or not as opaque as it can be if you thin it a little bit, and you can kind of create a bit of a blend between the shaded strands and the sort of highlighted strands that you're going to be doing now. Speaking of highlights, the first one we're going to be using is Evil Sunz Scarlet, and very carefully just follow the highest points of all of the hair and just work your way around the model. There isn't that much of it, and it's pretty easy, but just take your time, making sure that you stabilize your hand so you're getting a nice clean edge highlight, and then just make sure that you sort of leave a little bit of the darker red in the sort of deeper parts. So you kind of sort of want to be at the top, the apex of the curvature of the strand of hair, if you can imagine that sort of happening. Wild Rider Red is not a colour I really like, and to be completely honest, I've done it here and it's in the tutorial, but you could probably miss this stage out and just go straight to the next one. It doesn't do that much in terms of a transition. It's a kind of nice middle ground between the Evil Sunz and the Troll Slayer Orange, but you know, it could easily be skipped if you really wanted to, but it's here, so just do exactly what you did before. And then for the final edge highlight is Troll Slayer Orange, and again we're just picking out the most prominent points around the hair and just to making it just go pop. I really sort of like getting to this point because this is really cool, because everything now really starts standing out, and I really kind of love the heavy metal style when it comes to this, because it kind of looks and feels really good, and yeah, you really, when you sort of see it starting to come together like that, you're like, yeah, this is really cool. So I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to really show the face, but I've just shown a little bit of the footage of the face. I'm not going to go massively into detail on it, but basically I base coated everything with Kislev flesh, washed it with Doombull brown, and then started adding some ivory into the Kislev flesh and building up the highlights. And I did the eyes, and I worked around and did all of the rest of the detail on the model. So the only thing that needs to be done is the sword runes, which I'm going to be doing in a separate video, as well as the gemstones have all been done on this model, but I will be doing a video on the gemstones at a later date. And as you can see, he is finished. Well, finished to this point. So if you do like my content, please subscribe. The channel's going nuts right now, so it's really amazing to see. So please subscribe and check out my members area and our Patreon if you want to support me in other ways. And I will catch you all in the next video. And if you do join the members area, you can be like Mrs. Pointy here, who's my only member. And yeah, and I'll catch you in the next video, everyone. Goodbye for now.